Good morning, everybody. Mark Finan here in the home weather office on this Tuesday morning. It's the 24th day of June, 2025, and this is the morning briefing coming to you from the home weather office. Looking out the window, it's another beautiful morning. The skies are still a little bit hazy. There is still a little bit of that Canadian smoke hanging around, making the skies somewhat hazy, but as I'll show you here in a second, most of that is moving out. Temperatures today are going to be similar to what we had yesterday, and what we're going to be talking about today is the possibility of getting some warmer days ahead. So let's show you what's happening this morning. I mentioned that Canadian smoke, and this is really interesting. Notice this little area here coming across Idaho and into Nevada, circulating around this low in here, pretty thick up over Montana. We saw some of this over California yesterday. Whoops, what happened there? We saw some of that in our area yesterday, but let me see if I can refresh that. Come back. It doesn't want to come back. But either way, what we're going to have today is a nice day. Hate when that happens. So yesterday, 93 in Sacramento. Average is now 90. So a pretty average day. For this time of year, it says last year was 98. So yeah, we're in a pretty average range for this time of year. Today, the record high is 111 that we did back in 1961, so that is obviously safe. And I would expect that our daytime high today will be very similar to this, as well as the overnight low will be a little bit warmer over the next couple of days. Instead of being 55, will be more like 58 to 60 over the next couple of days. Yesterday, there were some thunderstorms over the crest of the Sierra. The clouds looked beautiful over the Sierra, but today, there may be a couple popping up. This is around 5 o'clock this afternoon. This is the HRRR. The NAM nest is a little bit more robust with this, showing maybe some activity a little farther north. I think it's going to be one of those days we'll likely see afternoon buildups, but probably fewer showers and thunderstorms than yesterday. And then during the day on Wednesday, you notice we don't have any of that. This is through the afternoon on Wednesday. We don't have any of that. So maybe just today you kind of keep an eye on the sky. I'm sure for those of you down on 395, down toward Mammoth, Bodie, you'll be seeing some of those buildups. But otherwise, we should see a pretty quiet day. All right, let's take a look at the bigger picture here. I mentioned that low that was kicking out to the east, and here it is here. So that Canadian smoke was being dragged around the low here. You can see this wind barb right here. So that's as that kicks farther out, we see nice clear air. And with this sort of a pattern, we get warm, but not overly hot. Temperatures for the middle and end of the week will be in the upper 90s. Now there is some thought. Let's see what day we're up to now. This is Friday, so let's go ahead another couple of frames to Saturday. There is some thought that on Friday, Saturday, Sunday, we could be in that range of 98 to 100 degrees. Some of the models are spitting out, 100, 101, 102, something like that. Either way, it's going to be warmer, and this will be our only chance, our last chance to hit 100 degrees in the month of June. We have been as high as 98, but whether or not we're going to hit 100 remains to be seen. But if we do, like I said before, we'll just kind of tickle it. We'll get up to around 100. Maybe it only stays at 98. We're certainly not looking at the 105, 108 sort of thing that really gets our attention at this time of year. And overnight lows would still be down in the low 60s. And then we get this next little low that kicks inland, helping to drop temperatures again as we get into the early part of next week. We should be up to, this is the 1st of July. And then beyond that, we will be seeing more of that troughiness. So the other thing that's going on here is that we have this trough here, which means generally back east we have ridging, and that's making a lot of news. And so for that, let's take a look at, these are the temperatures across the country this afternoon. And you'll notice that as I scroll over this along the eastern seaboard, the temperatures are 98, 99, that sort of thing. Pretty hot. And that goes from southern New England all the way down to Georgia. And of course, back east, it's not just the temperature, but of course it's the humidity. So if you look at the dew point temperatures, all of these dew points are in the 70s. So that gives you that feels like temperature that's over 100 degrees. And you notice the dry air here in the west. And usually it's along this boundary that you start to see severe weather as well. So you have dew point temperatures in the 70s, then you have dew point temperatures in the 60s, then in the 30s. So yeah, you talk about dry lines here, but that's a completely different topic. But what we're looking at here is once you get east of the Mississippi, especially, all of this area has dew points in the 70s, and you combine that with air temperatures that are in the 90s, and you get that that temperature that is quite miserable back east. So that's today, and then during the day tomorrow, it's really not much better, although there is some relief in the northeast, but certainly from, let's say, Washington, D.C. down through Georgia, it stays pretty miserable. And then what about Thursday? This is Thursday afternoon. It looks as though it does break a little bit more with temperatures down into the 90s, but still quite humid, but quite a bit cooler back in the northeast. Let's see, a couple of other things making news. We have our first Atlantic tropical storm of the season. This is Andrea, or it could be Andrea, I'm not quite sure. Either way, it's one of those little storms that pops up out here in the middle of nowhere. Right now it has winds of 40 miles an hour. It's good enough to be a tropical storm. But then by tomorrow morning it dissipates. So yeah, I know the Hurricane Center, they've got their duties and all the rest of that. But to me, this is one of those tropical storms that, they could have named it, they could have not named it, they could have left it alone. Either way, they're using one of the first names, well, the first name of the season for this one, but this is going to quickly dissipate. But these sorts of things do make news from time to time. And speaking of making news, I'm going to end today with a bit of a rant, and this goes back to Saturday and the boat accident at Tahoe. And if you haven't seen it yet, I did a video on that a couple of days ago on Sunday afternoon. And in that, I documented the wind speeds, sustained winds around 35. We saw gusts up over 40, that sort of thing. And I'm sure you've seen the video of the waves. I don't have permission to use some of that video, so I haven't used any of that. But what bugs me sometimes is how a weather event, you can document it. You can document by weather instruments exactly what's going on, but sometimes word of mouth starts increasing everything. And so here's an example. And you know how I like to say, make it a great day? Well, except for this guy. So this is on Twitter. I saw this yesterday, and so I'm going to get his name out of there. And the video down here I'm not going to show. Snow, hail, 10-foot waves, and hurricane-force winds. And the problem is that this has had like 8 million views. So obviously this person doesn't know what hurricane-force winds are, but it sounds good. 10-foot waves, I don't know where the 6 to 8 that were reported suddenly turned into 10. Snow, it didn't snow in Tahoe, it snowed up in the mountains. Hail, they didn't have hail, they had some graupel. Either way, the thing that bothers me is that weather is hard enough to predict what is going to happen. Reporting what did happen should be easy, especially when you have instruments and documentation and video and that sort of thing. So if you've seen tweets, stories like this, keep in mind that quite often the story as it goes along is going to get exaggerated in terms of what happened. And it wasn't something that, he also called it a massive freak storm out of nowhere. It wasn't massive, it wasn't freak. For those of you that know anything about mountain weather, Sierra weather, this happens. It happens in every month of the year. Also heard people say they've never seen anything like it. We see wavy conditions on Tahoe quite often when thunderstorms come through. So anyway, that's my last little bit of a gripe this morning. And just be careful about what you read and believe when it comes to weather reporting online. Because, like I said, reporting what happened should be a lot easier than forecasting what is going to happen. But some people still aren't able to do that. That's everything I've got for you this morning. And other than that person that posted that tweet, make it a great day. I'll talk with you later.